I'm Emily, an adult child, codependent member of ACA, and I'll be one of your hosts tonight, along with Abby.
Hi there, I'm Abby. I'm also an adult child and recovering codependent, and I will be your other host tonight. And Emily is also, as she has been, our superior tech support.
Thank you for that. We want to welcome you to the Anatomy of 12 Steps study group. The purpose of this group is to examine each of the 12 steps in a basic way. This Zoom meeting is not affiliated with any or not endorsed by any specific 12-step program. And then, oops, okay. Tonight we're going to focus on step 10. Abby, do you want to read step 10 for us?
Yes. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it.
Thank you. So we believe, regardless of which addiction or problem brought you into various rooms of recovery, the solution is the same, 12 steps. Just a few reminders before we begin presentations. We have some people tonight who are new to the working the steps. We also have some who have questions about the ideas and concepts we'll be going over. Several of us will remain online after the meeting for a few minutes to answer any questions or separate time to talk more in depth about what you need in your any difficult topic you want to talk about. Please respect your fellow travelers by honoring the no crosstalk guidelines. Please keep your mics muted until ready to speak. Feel free to raise your hand or use your digital hand. I think Abby's going to call on hands later on. Or if you're calling from a landline, then you can email your question to anatomy12steps 2022 at gmail.com. And we'll try to get you into the discussion. Unmute yourself when sharing and state your name, how you identify, and where you're from. Please finish your share by saying thank you so it's clear that you've ended. Because of the size of the study group, right now we're currently at 27, not too bad. We ask that you please keep your shares to a minimum of 2 to 3 minutes long. We don't really have a timekeeper, so if you'll kind of monitor yourself. Just a friendly reminder, so hopefully everybody who wishes to share will be able to do so. And we'll have some time for your questions later, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Abby, and she's going to get started with her presentation.
Thanks, Emily. Again, step 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. My purpose for step 10 is to keep me aware of my positive and deficient characteristics. Awareness and humility, once again, are my new tools that I can use to help keep me a healthy, recovering codependent. But to use these tools, I must make step 10 an actual practice. I strive to make this a daily routine. Every year, I strive to make this a daily routine, especially when I'm making my New Year's resolution. Don't always do it every single day, but it's something about step 10 is always on my mind. I'm constantly, kind of thinking and reviewing. Other times I'm a little bit more diligent with an actual routine, and which is one of the reasons why I absolutely love the chart that was included in our homework. So I get better and better. My self-esteem that I've garnered from working the steps, especially 4, 5, and 9, is maintained by my taking a personal inventory and promptly admitting my wrongs and admitting my rights. I look to step 10 to keep me on track, and to be on track, I must be aware and humble personally. Step 10 keeps me in the present and keeps me practicing the present. It gets me to slow down and distinguish a moment versus the present. By that, again, I'm referring to awareness. If I'm triggered in the moment, I'm still a recovering codependent and an adult child. That is my present. Recovery and the awareness it brings. I can disarm or discern a trigger and know if it's something I need to put in an old junk drawer, shake my head and move on, or if necessary, realize that the trigger has actually set me back on my familiar heels. That feeling of a setback has an antidote: to make a prompt amends, whether it be personally delivered or reinforced by a living amends. It's so much easier for me to make an amends in the moment than to stuff my feelings or shut down until I feel better and the moment fades away. Many times I realize my need for amending my behavior when I do a daily check-in with myself. It's at that time that I can ask myself and my higher power for grace and reaffirm my willingness and longingness to let it go. Again, revisiting steps 6 and 7. When I know better, I can let go and do better. Why is it important for me to list my positives and my recovery experiences along with my codependent behaviors? As Melody Beattie's The Language of Letting Go suggests, step 10 does not suggest that we ignore what is right in our life. I can now look fearlessly with a loving eye on what I've done differently in certain contentious situations. Did I show my vulnerability instead of my stubbornness or aloofness? Did I take responsibility for my actions, positivity in the face of negativity? Am I trusting a power greater than myself and creating a boundary and a space for prayer and meditation in the present of my moment? I have a new vision of what can be versus what was or even what is. As I said, I really like the personal inventory log, and I think that it is something that I'm going to be able to stick with. I've already got several of them printed out, and when I go into the office on Friday, I will have a couple stashed everywhere, maybe even in a stall in the ladies' room. But along with my other routines, it helps me give an overview of my past week. It's also simple enough to keep me on track with the other routines that I've used to track my accountability for my actions and reactions. There are 2 practices that I have that I really love that I've mentioned in several of the rooms. I call them my 937 moments. 937 is a very special number to me, and I have my alarm on my phone set for 9:37 in the morning and 9:37 in the evening. And when I'm able to, I read both prayers that I've adopted for my code of recovery, and I'd like to share them with you. I'm just going to read from my phone if you don't mind. Higher power, please remove from me everything that hinders my recovery and show me what I need to see so that I may become aware of my choices. Allow me to be conscious of your presence and to know your guidance. I ask you now to guide my thoughts, to guide my words, and to guide my actions. I thank you for leading me to the recovery programs, for the warm and loving fellowships, and guide my recovery moment by moment, one day at a time. And the other prayer that I read is, higher power, I give to you all that I am and that all that I will be for your healing and direction. Make new this day as I release my worries and fears, knowing that you are by my side. Please help me to open myself to your love, to allow your love to heal my wounds, and to allow your love to flow through me and from me to those around me. May today and always may it be so. And now, Emily, if you would put up my nighttime affirmations. This one I also love. Of course, I can't find it right this second. But if Emily would share it, I'll just read it off the screen. So my 15 bedtime. 2, I've done my best today. 3, I'm grateful for this day's opportunities. 4, my mind is restful. 5, I'm proud of myself. 6, everything I did today leads to a better tomorrow. 7, my heart is grateful. 8, my heart is pure. 9, my body is relaxed. 10, I'm happy with my accomplishments. 11, I'm proud of my efforts. 12, I'm safe. 13, I'm filled with content. 14, tomorrow is a new day full of possibilities. And 15, I rejoice in what I've learned today. So in conclusion, I suggest that we give ourselves time to work this step and this program, make the practice of step 10 fit where you are in the program now, pick a couple of routines that support you now. Once you feel the freedom of continuing to take personal inventory, and when you were wrong, promptly admit it, it will likely grow along with your recovery. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Abby. All right, so my hands full. So last week when I was introducing the homework, I compared step 10 to steps 4 and 5. And I've been guided by my fellow travelers to do a mini step 4 and 5 on specific situations. So like as we've discussed, step 10, so for me, step 4 and 5 was more of a, a mini dealing with specific resentments. Where step 10, I'm sorry, is going to help me integrate. I'm going to help integrate this recovery into my daily practice. Okay, so I've got my big yellow ACA step workbook here. I'm going to read just a couple of excerpts from this, starting with page 140. They're just going to be kind of short, right? So I'm starting with page 148. In step 10, we are making a statement to hang on to the hard-won changes we're employing in our lives. We are living with more honesty and affirmation of ourselves. We realize we don't have to act perfect or flawless to be loved or accepted. We can make errors and laugh at ourselves without feeling shame. We are less fearful of people and their opinions of us. Okay. And then on page 149, we often cannot avoid triggers, but we can change the way we deal with them. We can stop dealing with them in isolation. We have help now. We're not alone. We can talk to another person about our fears and thoughts, regardless of what they are. And I'm going to stop here for 1 second and put up my little screen share. This is the little meme that I shared from last week. It's right there. Okay. And just, if you're not your trigger, have it like, I'm going to screw up my video and my signal if I open it and read it. But basically, you're not your trigger, you're triggered by your trigger. People trigger your trigger, but you're not your trigger, you're more than that. And you have to learn your trigger is pointing to the pain that needs to be healed, right? And so it's your responsibility as an adult, when you're kids, it's not, that wasn't up to us. We were just pushed in a situation we could control. As an adult, it's totally our responsibility. We're not, could be victims or hang on to that and use that as an excuse. It's totally our responsibility to, heal that trigger for ourselves and for the people around us. Okay. And then page 151. We recognize manipulation, our own or others, more quickly, and we take a different path. We learn to inventory our motives before taking action. Sometimes we take no action, which is the best action. These are the elements of choice and discernment found in step 10. And right here, I'm going to take just a second and share a story. So I recently had a job interview for a higher up job within my same department. And my department head was there, and my supervisor was there. Another guy that's kind of my supervisor, but he's more of a project leader. So they were all there, and it was and the department director asked, "So Emily, what's a project that you've worked on that you enjoyed doing but didn't turn out the way you wanted it to?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I know I have the exact perfect example of this." And Banu, so Banu was the supervisor I had worked on this project with. I said, "Yeah, Banu and I worked on this one project with, the sheriff's department," and he started launching into the story, and he was going to tell. He's like, "Oh yeah, so what happened was," and he was starting to give the details of this project, and I kind of stepped back for just a second. I was like, for just a second, and then I said, "Wait a second, Banu, whose interview is this? Yours or mine?" They died. Everybody just died. And I was like, where did that come from? How did those words, the perfect words at the perfect time, said with just a little bit of humor, so not to offend anybody, right? But I didn't you know, I didn't shoot off the rails or, you know, flames didn't come out of my head or anything. I said the exact right thing at the exact right time and diffuse it. And he was like, oh yeah, okay. And they loved it. They, you know, after the interview, they were going on and on about my confidence level. And I was like, okay. So that's something that I've always kind of really struggled with is when stuff like that happens, I want to be able to say the exact right thing at the exact right time. And that was, I'm not saying that's going to happen that way every time, but it was perfectly timed too. It was, I didn't get the job, but that was a great interview. And I was really grateful for my steps. So I was really grateful that I could take a second and just go, really, you're gonna let him say that? You're gonna let him do that? And just, okay, wait a second. That's my boundary. I'm gonna step in. That's, yeah. So, and then page 158 and 159. Sorry for the page flipping here. So, in step 3, we realized our need or compulsion to control others is a major stumbling block in allowing a loving God or divine presence to work in our lives. In step 10, we revisit this troublesome survival trait. We are not saying that all control is bad. We must have some order in our lives or risk chaos. However, rigid control can mean death for some ACAs and their loving relationships. If we think about it, we know the difference between compulsive control and practical order in our lives. There is room for spontaneity and imagination in the latter. And then on this page, with step 10, we also realize we have released more of our control and we are learning the difference between control and discernment, kind of what Abby was saying earlier. With discernment, we refrain from saying something off color or acting impulsively on a given situation. Discernment means we know who we are. We trust ourselves at last. We can relax and be an actor in life rather than a reactor. And again, just those words, there's some room for spontaneity and imagination. Like I was saying earlier, I don't know where I came up with those words, Bonnie, whose interview is this, yours or mine? It just kind of came out. I also want to talk about, in this moment, so to me, that kind of sums up the letting go and being present. So my kind of weaknesses are definitely fear and control. And I have to let go of the fear to be present. And so things change all the time. Things are always changing. I was kind of lamenting to some friends, some coworkers, my kids, a couple of weeks ago about the gas prices. The gas prices are not going to be that way forever, right? It's going to change in a week. The weather in South Carolina is going to change in a day. Things never stay the same. That's kind of my that's kind of a stumbling block. It's been a stumbling block for me, and a lot because I really like my routine and I really don't like change, especially when the kids are getting out of school for the summertime or they're starting school again, in the fall. That screws up my routine. I don't do agree with that. I'm doing better since recovery. I'm doing a lot better. But things are going to change. We can count on the fact that things are going to change. And so, I also want to say I have 2 teenagers right now at home, a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old. And the 14-year-old okay. The 13-year-old girl was a little dramatic at times. Sometimes quiet and angsty. And sometimes she's fine. Sometimes she's normal. But anybody who has kids and can remember the terrible twos, it's only for a year. And yeah, maybe that year can maybe seem a little bit long, but there were some good spots in that year, right? The terrible twos, there were still some, maybe they potty trained or gave you a sloppy wet kiss or something, or hugged the dog for the first time. So there's some good spots in the twos as well. And, with this, I know, when stuff comes up, arguments, the teenager, when I'm trying to control, when I'm trying to take their devices, limit their screen time or limit their phone time or something like that, and it causes a temper tantrum or something. Is this worth the fight? Is this worth is this the battle? Is this the hill I want to die on? And I know this stuff is coming, right? I know that these things, I'm kind of prepared. I know these things are coming. I can go, okay, in a year, it's going to be, okay, right now it's a little uncomfortable, but give it a couple of months. There's still some really good patches, there's still some really good times we get to sit together. But the uncomfortable will last for maybe another year or so. And nothing's going to stay the same. Okay. And then what else did I want to say? Also, so my experience with my sponsor who gave me this inventory, and she is on the line today. She's part of the task force meeting, and I'm very grateful for her. When I first picked up this inventory log, I got very overwhelmed with it at first. I felt like I had to go through every day and identify all of these, right? I was like, if I have to do that, I'm never going to get anything done. So I'm not going to get anything else done. So I chose my two primary weaknesses, fear and control. In the first few days, maybe like Monday and Tuesday or something, I was counting 8 to 10 times a day, fear or control would come up. But then, and I wish I could describe it better, it was more like, it was kind of a shift. I was taking a look at these and I was looking at the character, I was looking at the strengths and thinking, how would I like to replace the fear and the control? And my light bulb moment was when I combined the patience and the trust, that I would like to do in place of the fear. And that change came when, after acknowledging those strengths, I actually started looking for places where I could try them. So once I had my awareness on it, I was like, oh, I wonder where I can find that. And so sitting in traffic, often, okay, now is a good time to practice, not, patience and trust, right? Instead of trying, to control the people driving like crazy maniacs in front of me, I can just relax and be more tolerant. Submitting a job application instead of being all tied up in fear, or restricting my teenager's cell phone use. There is some control, obviously, like we talked, like the workbook said, there has to be some place for some control, right? Because that's going to keep chaos from ensuing. But and that is still kind of a struggle with, which one is which control is which. But at the same time, I'm looking for places where I know that's unhealthy, because I can feel it. I can feel it in my body. I can feel where I can recognize the feeling physically, like I can feel it in my diaphragm, or I can feel it in my throat, or I can feel it in the back of my neck. So this inventory log really kind of helps us recognize and name the feelings that we are made to really suppress and repress as kids. And as a physical adult, without that emotional education, we had pretty much completely lost the ability to stop that rage, or to stop the sorrow, the tears, and the manipulative tactics that we used to get what we wanted, or to make somebody do something to stop our anxiety, right? And like I said, I've personally learned where I feel certain emotions, if I hold back my authenticity and don't speak my truth, I feel like my throat kind of feels constricted. So those are great clues to me. And plus, you get the feeling of, I don't feel good. When you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed and somebody's like, oh my gosh, I don't feel good. You ever get in a situation or an experience with other people, or something that's going on, like, oh my gosh, I don't feel good. Like something, it's a reaction, right? Everybody's kind of maybe hopefully familiar with, I don't feel good. Well, what exactly can you put a name to it? Because if you can put a name to it, it slows down that drive, right? And kind of hopefully helps get you through the process a lot faster. Not to say that stuff won't hang on, but if you can name it, and if you can recognize it, then hopefully the distress passes more quickly. You can realize that's pointing to something, right? That pain or that discomfort is pointing to a lesson that you need to learn, to something that you need to work on, something that needs to be healed. Okay. And again, my trigger, the trigger meme. I've only been, there is one other thing that I wanted to share that Abby actually, when I was talking with Abby about this step, that she didn't mention it, so I'm going to give her, go ahead and give her credit. But so when I'm talking about my teenage kids, recently we all kind of got into a fight because I didn't like the way they were behaving. And I'm not sure if this was controlling. I think because of the way that I was feeling, the reaction, I think it was maybe me trying to control or having expectations of a way that they should be acting. Okay. And I really did feel myself, I really did notice myself kind of going into this it started this drive, right? It starts this this inertia kind of picks up. I start ranting and this inertia really picks up, and then I start raising my voice and the rabbit starts stomping and the dog starts whining, and I'm like, okay. And I actually stopped the last time, this was actually a couple of days ago, I actually stopped kind of mid-fight, and I said, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm being inconsiderate, I'm being selfish, I'm being delusional. But once we got, and the thing that I wanted to credit Abby was saying was that I got down on their level, right? So when I was a kid, my mom would say stuff to me like, I can't wait until you have kids. I hope they turn out to be exactly like you. Did your parents ever say that to you? I hope when you have kids, they'll be exactly like you someday. That'll teach you. And so Abby was saying something like that we really do become their peers, right? We got into this fight, and suddenly, they can't imagine their mom as a teenager, but suddenly I was physically an adult, but mentally I was their peer. And I really love this, that she said that. That really kind of clicked for me. So thank you, Abby. And then lastly, I want to say, I have notes, but I've also been kind of winging it. So there's kind of that control/fear thing, but I've only been in recovery for about a year. I finished my steps with my awesome sponsor this past December. I've never participated in a step program like this, and I've never presented in a step program like this, but I feel confident, like I never have before. And this is just in a year's time. And of course, I know I have a long way to go. I'm never going to graduate. I'm going to have to keep going and going. But I can personally, I know now that I can personally generate how I choose to respond. I can generate that for myself. If I give myself the time and trust myself, I can generate my own responses. Thank you so much for letting me share. And now we're going to open it up for discussion.
Thanks, Emily. As we've said before, please no cross talking, and do begin with your name and end with thank you, so that we know that you're done, and just so that everybody has a chance to share. Let's try to limit our shares to about 3 to 5 minutes, and I will call on the hands as they start to raise. If anybody has any questions or comments. Vinny.
Hi, my name's Benny, a child. Thank you, everybody, for your shares. I related a lot to everything that was said and got a lot out of it. I actually just have one question for right now. I'm just kind of letting everything sink in, but I can't express how much everything that was said really strikes me right now as to where I'm at in my life, and really meant a lot to me. So thank you. But my question is, the thing that was posted about triggers, people don't trigger you, they trigger your trigger. Can you tell me what page in the book that came the reading is connected to?
That actually came from something that it's from a spiritual guy's name is Wu Wei Wisdom. He's a spiritual, I think his name is David, isn't that right? For now, John David or something, and he's a Buddhist monk, or he studied under a Buddhist monk, and I was able to find that on his, just kind of follow some of his teachings, and I found that on his website, on his Facebook and his website.
Okay, thank you. And I'll pass.
Thank
with
you.
that.
Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy, Coda and adult child. I just had a question based on the inventory handout. I thought was super helpful, but I'm wondering if someone could speak more to frozen feelings. I have an idea, but if someone could speak more to that, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
So, Amy, what is your first thought on the frozen? What does that make you think of? Where's your first reaction to that? Like,
Yeah, so my first thought kind of is that idea where you freeze into kind of more survival mode and you don't exactly know what your feelings are because you're waiting to see what everyone else is feeling. And especially, in terms of growing up, I will respond accordingly, kind of shutting down that sense of feeling. So you're not quite sure where you're at. That was my kind of assumption.
that's how I interpreted it as well. When I started it, I was like, I did just tend to shut down a lot. That was in relationships, especially my last romantic relationship. I did a lot of shutting down and isolating. So like mentally, emotionally isolating. I'm here and I'm going to pretend I would have a smile of like, to just pretend, yeah, how are you doing? Everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's your, you put on this fake, I'm fine, my generic, yeah, I think you're thinking along the right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pat?
I'm off mute and I'll turn my camera back on so you guys can see me. My name is Pat. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, and I normally live in Danville, Virginia, or near Danville, Virginia, Southside Virginia. I'm an adult child and attend a lot of Al-Anon meetings, or started in Al-Anon. Now mostly I attend ACA and CODA meetings. Amelia was talking about frozen feelings, and God, I love this. Thank you. Somebody got her muted. Okay. I love these steps because they help to unfreeze a lot of those feelings. My mother died, and my sister will probably remember this story because we'd been in program. Well, I had been in the program maybe a couple of years when she died. And boy, I did not like the fact that my feelings had gotten unfrozen at that time. But working with a good sponsor, I feel like I sound like a broken record. It is so important to find somebody that I trusted, someone that accepted me so that I could work through some of this stuff, and someone that I could call and talk to when I didn't really understand my feelings. Somebody called me a day or two ago and just felt anxious and didn't know what the feeling was other than anxious. And after a few minutes of talking, we could dive down and find out a little bit more. But having, like somebody said earlier tonight, having other people, other recovery people in this program that I feel who seem comfortable in their own skin, who seem empowered, who have the serenity that I want, and getting their name and number and calling them was one of the biggest ways I have been able to work that 10th step. To me, step 10 is pretty easy in that I take my inventory like we talked about today. And if I am discontent, if I am anxious, if I am in resentment, if I am, then I've got to go back and work the steps. And that means all of them. That does not mean just the first one, but it means all of them. I got to start at step 1. Some people do just 4 and 5 and 4 through 9. That's fine. It all falls back on the steps, because those steps get me out of this pain. Those steps help me find those feelings that I couldn't find before. And I hope those people who are that are in this meeting who are willing to sponsor people, their name in the chat box. There are so many people out there that need a good sponsor. And there's all sorts of information out there. I've got to talk out there myself on sponsorship. But that sponsor helps me understand those steps and helps me use all of this material. And to me, the steps take in all the other concepts. And I learned so much. But anyway, I'll shut up and let somebody else share. Thanks for letting me share, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Pat. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm AA and ACA from Arkansas. And in the questions, the first question in the homework was, what is the purpose of step 10? And I think that y'all have talked about that. I said it was to continue our inventory and try to get a more balanced view of myself. And then it says, how does a personal inventory differ from a moral inventory? And I said that, you know, it's not as deep, it's just focuses on today. I don't have to go back 50 years to do my daily inventory. I just have to go back about 12 hours and, you know, maybe I can figure out what's going on. As a matter of fact, just with doing, you know, being aware of this week, something's come up that I did when I was 29 years old. I stole something, and I'm gonna have to do something about that. I'm gonna have to make an amends. It comes back and forth in my mind, but I'd put it down. I just shoved it on down. But today, something's got to be done. So I appreciate this step. The next question says, how did this step assist me in letting go and living in the presence? And I said, it taught me honesty. I didn't say this, the book said it. It taught me honesty, humility, and forgiveness. And so I will make amends for that thing that I stole. And I'll admit it, you know, I'm admitting it to y'all. So to y'all and, you know, and to God, and I'll make amends. So I appreciate what y'all are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Madeline?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Madeline, an adult child and codependent from North Carolina with a tornado going through my county. So I thought maybe I'd better hurry up and speak unless it knocks me off the internet a second time. So at any rate, and I can speak to step 10 with this tornado warning going on, because step 10 to me, and what I do with this is I stop and look inside of myself and check out what I am feeling. And, you know, some of the questions tonight are, how did you get your feelings to fall? How did you learn about feelings? And when I got into recovery, the only feeling I knew I had was fear. I didn't know that there were all kinds of aspects of fear. I didn't know about any of the others. So I had to thaw out in my recovery journey, and I had to learn about feelings. And I started out with those little smiley face charts, and I learned that I could have different feelings. I didn't even know the names of the feelings. I knew none of that kind of thing. Y'all have got even more complex, feeling wheels, I guess we call them today, with all kinds of feelings on there. I had read one of the recovery books one time, and it was said in there that there's we could probably categorize all feelings into 4 major groups: glad, sad, mad, and frightened and fear. And that's what I started with. And that really helped me begin to learn what feelings are. I used to be a parent educator teaching parenting class curriculum, that they had units and teach their children what feelings are, how to identify and label the feelings, and how to be human in dealing with each of the feelings. And I was thrilled with that because I got none of that when I was growing up. So step self to see, label that feeling, and then handle what's going on. Somebody or try to control a situation, then I need to go make amends, tell what's going on. Many times in that identification process, I write out a 4th step, and that helps me clarify. Really important to me, but it's already been said that it's becoming aware of what's going on within me. How have I been these last 24 hours? And I'm now conscious of what I'm feeling inside of me about all the time. I watch for it, I'm aware of it. I take stock in what's going on within my head, and it helps me stay on track. And as you know, you've heard me say before, I do not want to lose this program. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's the most sensible way to live life that I have ever known about, read about, or studied. So I love this process. So I will continue to do 10 steps every day. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Madeline.
So I want to talk about the part of step 10 that, and I was late, so it might have got talked about before I got on, but, and that is the part about when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And that has been so interesting to me, because most of the time I do it when I'm at work. It seems like work is a challenge for me to keep my program. So when I come to work the next day and I make amends to whoever it is that I feel like I've harmed the day before, it's always so interesting to me that most of the time they're so shocked and they're so surprised that somebody actually thought about the interaction enough to know that there was a problem and was willing to own up to their side of it. And I just think that's such a healing part of the step. When I'm laying there at night and I'm doing my step 10 before I go to sleep, and I think about, something that I said. So whenever I think about that, it just, and I deal with it the very next day, it's always so shocking to other people, because I don't think that's how the world typically operates. Typically, you don't go back to somebody and say, hey, I was wrong when I raised my voice to you yesterday, or I was wrong when I was abrupt with you, or I was wrong when ... whatever. So I just want to point out that part of the step, and I think it's a really important part, that once I figure out that I did something wrong, I have to go to the other person and admit that I did it and make amends for it. So thanks, and that's all for now.
Thanks, Nancy. Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm a grateful ACA and codependent. Very grateful to be here today. I've gotten a lot out of the shares and the prayers and the experience, strength, and hope. And I just wanted to say that I'm just very grateful today for the program and for the steps and for fellow travelers and for sponsorship in the steps. So I just wanted to say I've gotten a lot out of our meeting today, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I'll raise my own hand and call on myself. One thing that I want to just very briefly comment on, I absolutely love this meme that Emily posted from her monk readings. As triggers are just triggers to me are almost a blessing. I'm not saying that they're fun. But when I first got triggered, it at least showed me that I was feeling something, and it gave me something to concentrate and delve into and to try to figure out. I now really appreciate them because I can identify them, and which is just miles away from where I was 5 years ago. So a trigger gives me a literal opportunity for growth and to show me that I am healthier than my trigger. So I just wanted to thank Emily for that. I've saved it in my material, and I think it's probably gonna go on my phone. So thank you for that, Emily, and thank you for letting me share. And with that, I will pass it to Kendall. And you're on mute, Kendall.
Got it. Thanks. Hey, everybody. Thanks for the service work. And I really like the daily chart that you all have generated, as well as the bedtime affirmation shares up till now. A couple of excerpts that from my reading on step 10 that I wanted to share. One is from The Steps We Took by Joe McHugh, that we are talking about a positive program where we look at problems head on, analyze them, get down to the causes and conditions, and use the tools we've learned to use to get rid of the problems. The more we use these tools, the more skilled we're going to become with them. That is steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. For example, once we've made amends a few times, we're going to find out that we are able to just go and do it when we need to without the dread that we had at first. So step 10 is not a new process. It's steps 4 through 9 done every day as a habit. We are learning about tools for living. And that helps me when I'm getting, when I'm stuck and my day's over and I'm like, I still don't feel a sense of calm or peace or satisfaction, or I'm still worried or anxious or whatever, that the steps give me a way to kind of process these thoughts when I'm willing to do it. Step 1, if I'm upset with someone, well, step 1, I'm powerless over that person and it's my life that's unmanageable. Step 2, come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Well, yeah, I can check that box every time, but step 3 is always a gotcha for me. Come to believe that a power greater than my, step 3, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. Well, turn my life over? I want to, I need to, I should, but I probably haven't because I'm trying to figure out how to do it. But how to do it myself. But it's getting better. It is a process of recovery, and it is lifelong, which has already been shared. So when I go through steps 1, 2, 3, get caught on 3 with a hiccup, but and reimagining who my higher power is and his attributes apart from what I was taught. And then going back through steps 4 through 10, where have I been, 4 through 9, where have I been selfish and self-centered today? Where have I been fearful? Have I been inconsiderate? Am I not considering that someone else doesn't want to change? Someone else doesn't have to change. I just want them to change. Well, if I just want them to change, then I'm being self-centered. If I think I can make them change, then I'm not being considerate that they have free will. But going through the steps 1 through 10 really does give me 1 through 9 as part of a step 10 daily process when I'll do it, does help me to kind of get a step generated perspective apart from Kendall's usual MO of just jumbled thoughts of anxiety and resentment. It helps me to dial all of the anxiety and resentment down and give me a way to proceed. If I've got to do a 4th step and do a 5th step with someone the next day to go over it, to go over the fears that are holding me back or held me back or kept me procrastinating, then there's a way to process it rather than just, well, it's been shared, stuffing the feelings. And then lastly, per AA's 12 and 12 on page 90, it is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. If somebody hurts us and we are sore, we are in the wrong also. But are there no exceptions to this rule? What about justifiable anger? For us, these are dangerous exceptions. We've found that justifiable anger ought to be left to those better qualified to handle it. A spot check inventory taken in the midst of such disturbances can be a very great help in quieting stormy emotions. Today's spot check finds its chief application to situations which arise in each day's march.
Thank you, Kendall. Barbara?
Okay. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone for your shares. I got just really appreciate each of them. And for me, I think I was trying to do the step 10 or the daily personal inventory log perfect and made it very, very difficult for myself. I ended up calling a couple of people to try to get some clarification on what to do and how to use it. But it was so interesting on, I think I found a way. Sorry about that. So I thought it was all. But anyway, my ex-husband had ended up having to have brain surgery on Tuesday, and he didn't have any family here or anything. I went to the hospital when he came out, wanted to be there when he came out of ICU. So I went to the hospital to check on him. But of course, in order to get in to see him, let me back up. I thought in order to get in to see him, it would be best if I said I was his wife. So that's exactly what I did. And I had no problem getting in there. So I got into the hospital by saying that. And of course, shortly after I said it, this little voice in my head was just beating myself up tremendously about saying that. And then, of course, when I went into his room, I did tell him what I had done. And of course, he had no problem with it because he said, I put you down as my emergency contact person anyway. But that was beside the point. It was, me that made that choice. And I chuckled at myself. I'm going, well, maybe I didn't tell, I just told half the truth because I was his wife. I just didn't tell him X. I didn't put the X on there. And I'm going, nope, that was not the truth. And I know, for me, because I am, being honest is a big part of this program for me. And it's just something that means a lot to me. So to try to be as honest as possible. Because I always realize, I have to live with me. And growing up and I forgot to say, I'm ACA, and I started out in Illinois, and I came from both my parents were alcoholics. So dishonesty was not something that I don't think was practiced very much in my family. We didn't, because we didn't talk about a lot of things. And I think I mentioned before that I was dishonest in the fact that I had, I took some money from my father's pocket a couple of times without letting him know it. And I've been dishonest in other ways too. But, at the core of it, what I found is, usually fear. There's something usually I'm afraid of. I don't, and sometimes I get confused because I'm going, oh, am I trying to control or is it fear? But because again, when I came into this program, fear was my number one thing, my number one emotion, because I came out of a very dysfunctional, fearful environment. So I was consumed with a lot of fear, and a lot of my behavior has been, based on fear. But I was able at some point after talking to someone, was able to forgive myself, which is what I needed to do for being, for choosing to be dishonest. It was a choice that I made. And I was able to forgive myself and, love myself and go on and say, next time when the opportunity presents itself, I hope that I will make the choice to be honest, because most of the time I'm honest because I don't like having to go back and make amends. So I tried really hard to do, not to do anything where I will have to go back and make amends to people, because I've had to do it and I know how uncomfortable it feels for me. So I'd rather do it, and I hesitate to say the right way, but the way that's best for me, that's in line with my values, the very first time. So that's something that I work on. But I do like this because it does help me to take a look at myself and my, my actions and my behavior. And it helps me kind of, to not to beat myself up, but I think to recognize that I'm human and I have weaknesses and I have strengths. And the fact that I'm willing and I have the desire to want to do something about the weaknesses, to me it's just, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I want to get better at some of these, weaknesses that I know that are part of me. And I am really grateful that I can recognize some of the strengths that I have too, because prior to coming into this program, I wasn't able to really see a lot of the strengths that I possessed. But over time, and as a result of, working the steps the best that I can, I am able today to see a lot of strengths that I have. Other people, would be able to see them and point them out to me. But for me to actually say, yeah, this is what, these are my strengths, I wasn't able to do that. But I'm like I said, I'm better able to do that today. And that was just one little short paragraph in Strengthening My Recovery that I wanted to share. It says, to help us stay focused, we look to step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. It allows us to inventory our thoughts and our actions on a regular basis. And this keeps our impulsive natures in check. So we recognize boundaries in everyday life. On this day, as my identity and my values become more clear, I will work to become consistent in setting my own boundaries and honoring the boundaries other people set. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Barbara. Emily.
I just wanted to share one other quick thing. So I found a feeling wheel, and that was me on the Zoom earlier trying to get to Google Drive and upload it. So sorry about that, Nancy. That was me. I was trying to put it in the chat box. And I just encourage everybody, if you can, to find a feelings wheel. I don't remember like the magnets that you could put on the refrigerator. There were some that were like coins or whatever, right? They were kind of like a bazillion pieces, and you could put them on the refrigerator. And then I remember I had one in college, my roommates had one. Today I'm feeling, and there's like a square like that big with different, all the emotions of a college first thing, which was many and varied. And just, you know, and this feelings wheel that I downloaded, it was either Madeline or Pat that was mentioning this earlier. They're varied, right? So you go from happy to playful to cheeky, right? So it's like it's kind of fun to take, you know, not so much fun to do that with your weaknesses, but on the other hand, maybe you can kind of drill down a little bit more too, exactly what that trigger points to, so you know how it relates to something else, the actual hurt part, right, in your inner child that got hurt. So whatever that feeling is, your inner child understands the basic, the smaller, more nuanced feelings of that, I think. And then, you know, it's fun to maybe play with the happier ones, right? Like accomplished, proud, accepted, creative, valued, inquisitive, right? I know my inner child is very inquisitive, so it was kind of fun to play with those. So, you know, if you think that's something that might be kind of a cool tool, to have that for both maybe your strengths and your weaknesses, as a way to maybe, like I said, talk with your inner child or your inner teenager, wherever you're kind of experiencing that trigger at the moment. That's all I had. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Emily. Jan.
Hello, everyone. Janice, ACA, codependent from Boston. And as per typical, when I come to these meetings, I feel so incredibly privileged to hear all this information, but I also feel kind of overloaded and I have to process it. So in the midst of my processing, something jumped into my head, and I'm not sure how it relates exactly to what we were saying, except that it did seem to make sense. So I thought I would share it because I find it very helpful, because I tend to be very impulsive and out the mouth before I think. So prior to making amends, sometimes it would help. So they say to ask 3 questions when you want to give advice, and you've probably all heard it. It says, does it have to be said? Does it have to be said by me? And does it have to be said now? And I thought that was like 3 very good words of wisdom, and I felt like sharing that with you. So thank you again, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you, Jan.
Anybody else have anything they want to share?
Does it have to be on step 10, or can we just general share?
General share.
No, go for it.
Oh, great. Thank you. I guess today I just felt the urge to be in control, because my daughter, so we're trying to figure out her sleep schedule, and we're trying really hard, and my in-laws helping. So we just had a newborn, so it's like a month old, and they're helping to take care of that or 2. And I was like, I want things my way. Like, she was supposed to, you know, nap at this time and this and this. And then I just, I literally had to just take a minute and just push myself to not be this control freak, because I was like, oh, you know, it's supposed to be my way. So I kind of felt proud that I did not lose it. And it's a lot. I guess it's improvement from this program, because I really wanted to, and I have to realize, you know, I have to let it go, and things don't have to go my way. And then they're doing the best they can, helping out. And because, you know, I know I wanted things this way, but it just, I think I'm kind of like a proud moment of like, you know what, things didn't go this way, but I think it was for
you know, there was the reason behind it, and you know, the higher power knows what to do. So I just have to let go, and it's really difficult, you know, leaving that step 1, 2, and 3 before getting to the higher steps. But I have, sorry, I think I muted myself.
You did just for a couple of words.
Oh, sorry. Just so basically just you know, letting you go and realizing that I have to do a step 1, 2, and 3 every single day. So thanks for letting me.
Thank you, Ellen. Any other shares?
I'll share
Yes,
briefly.
thank you.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I've been listening. Really great shares. I appreciate all of them. There's something, this is from a book called The 12 Steps A Way Out. It's like a workbook for friends in recovery, but I really like the way they do it. And I like the first part is understanding the step. And this was just real helpful to me. Anyone who has planted a garden knows the care required to keep it healthy. We must remove the rocks and weeds, enrich the soil with fertilizer, bank it to hold water, plant the seeds, water, and guard against insects. Constant care is required to keep the garden clear of weeds, which could retake the garden if allowed. The garden once belonged to those weeds, and they always seem to want it back. Our recovery is similar to a garden. Our lives once belonged to the weeds, our self-defeating behavior, but our higher power has helped us plant a garden in our lives, pulled the weeds and caused some wonderful things to grow in their place. Higher power used the steps as tools and raised us to a place where things are different. We are beginning to see the promise of fruit, the promise of lasting change. In the midst of this new garden, we can also see the return of weeds. We don't die easily. In fact, as long as we live, weeds, our old self-defeating ways, will seek to recapture our lives. For that reason, we must be ever vigilant to work step 10. We must continue to take personal inventory and protect our garden. And I really like that visual that gives me, and it is something that I have to do on a daily basis. So thank you guys for excellent talks and good shares. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks so much, Vernell. Kendall?
Hey, thank you for that reading. The reading that was just shared kind of parallels on this last reading I wanted to share. And this is the book, The Steps We Took by Joe McHugh. On page 131, all the things we need are already within us. Our higher power is within us. So we have all the courage and love and tolerance and patience we need, but all those positive qualities have been obscured by all the negative things we've been generating. We find out that when we get rid of the negative things, the good characteristics we want just naturally come out. The big book says we will find that we've tapped an unsuspected inner resource of strength. Love, courage, tolerance, patience, these are powerful things we can use in our lives. Step 10 is there to nurture them. They are unlimited. As we practice them daily, we find they continue to grow. Many people seem to fall into the trap of overloading their days with the problems of yesterday and tomorrow. We must remember that we are given strength for one day. And when we overload that day, it causes us great problems. We can see that step 10 will guide us to an efficient use of our daily strength, and we will learn to live one day at a time. The excitement of recovery is that it goes on forever. A person who is in a growth pattern can look back on his life every so often and see that he's living in a world he didn't live in even a year before. Thanks again.
Thank you, Kendall. If there are no more burning desires to share, we will thank everybody for a wonderful meeting. Remember that some of us will remain in the Zoom room after the closing, and if you have any further questions, please let us know. And please also remember that for the sake of anonymity, what we share in this room stays in this room. Those of us in this room we are our people, so share with each other, please, but not outside of the room. And I'd like now to turn it over to Nancy, who will tell us what we have in store for us next week for step 11. Nancy?
So today I sent Ava the step 11 sheet. And what it is basically is just a list of meditations from YouTube. And I gave it to everybody last year when people were doing step 11. And but this one's even longer. I've added more to it. So your homework is to try one or two of these meditations. They have a topic, like it'll say, for example, letting go, and then it'll have the link for the meditation. Some of them say how long they are and other ones don't. So, just pick and choose and take some time to look at 3 or 4 of these meditations and see if there's any of them that really speak to you that you would like to use in your meditation practice. So that's your homework for this week.
Thanks, Nancy.
That's all.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And as we always do, we'll close with a couple of prayers that we've chosen. One is, higher power, help me make this step and other steps the habitual way of responding to life and my issues. Help me know that I am, excuse me, help me know that I am free to live, to allow myself to fully experiment and experience life. If I get off course, or if any issue arises that demands my attention, help me deal with it by using the 10th step. And of course, a version of the serenity prayer, higher power, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you all for a wonderful meeting and putting up with me specifically for 3 weeks. So, and again, we will stay on if anybody has any questions or wants to further the discussion. Thank you.